Hello everybody and welcome back to part 3 of my presentation. I'm looking at a book called Every Child Can Succeed by William Glasser. And in part 2 we refreshed our memories with Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development, and we're going to see if that theory meshes with mastery learning, a la Glasser, and its application to the secondary classroom. And just to review with you, we need to revisit something called choice theory. I talked about it in section 1 of our book review. And basically, choice theory is this in a nutshell, that all behaviors are consciously chosen by our students. And those behaviors are an attempt to meet one of 5 needs. You see them listed below in the slide. Power, love, survival, freedom, and fun. Now, when we talk about power, we're talking about respect of individuals, and we talk about survival. We're not talking about somebody running around the building with a spear and in bear skins, hunting or hiding food out in the corner of the football field. Nothing like that. We're talking about basic feelings of safety and security. And so our study suggests this: in order for people to help others, we must teach them how to help others. We must equip them with the basics of an understanding of choice theory in order that they can make a classroom a healthy learning environment. And there are some suggestions about how we might do that from Glasser. I'm also using an article. I need to give credit where credit is due. I found a very interesting article in my studies written by Gary W. Lewis, using Glasser's choice theory to understand Vygotsky, and it's from the International Journey of Reality Therapy, which is actually choice theory in another name. And he did a really nice job of condensing our classroom teaching from the text and helping us understand how Glasser might help us, carry this out in an effective way. And so I'm going to lean on that article a little bit, and I just needed to give credit where credit was due. And so by default, when we talk about meeting the needs of others and these 5 needs, that this is going to require other people. In order to feel loved and that you belong and all the other needs, we need to be near other people. And so we're going to take Vygotsky's teachings on effective social interactions, and we're going to add some of Glasser's suggestions to it, that those social interactions become effective. And so here's what Glasser suggests: that teachers must teach their students about the basics of choice theory. So how do we get across to our students what these 5 needs are? So we'll take one in detail. We'll deal with the subject of power, and which we're calling respect, and here's how he would suggest it. He would ask us to go out and talk to our students and say, would you like to live in a classroom and work in a classroom when you stood up and you spoke, that people respected what you said and listened attentively to what you were saying? And he believes that most children would nod their heads and say, yeah, that's the kind of class that I would like to be in. And he would ask them to recount times when they had been in a class like this. And he would also ask them to remember a time where the opposite happened, where they stood up to speak and they were not respected, people weren't attentive to what they were saying, they were disrespected, and he would want everybody to agree that that would be a real bad thing to happen. And because it was explained in an appropriate way, that everybody would just agree that that's the way that a classroom should run. And so he gives suggestions in the book of how to carry out and explain all of the other needs, and how that as teachers that we can help our students understand all of those other needs that are being met continually in the classroom. And so maybe just briefly, I'll touch on the others as quickly as I can. So I've already touched on power. I won't go back there again. In terms of the need for love, he just uses a simple example. When we work in groups, make sure everybody has their place. And I encountered that this week. I'm going to just play my hand and tell you that I find Glasser a little bit simplistic, and his meeting of needs, a bit of a lower way to live than we're called to live at Christians. But I got caught this week observing a situation where I had kids working in small groups, and I had a new person in my class at this stage of the year, and there was a wall between that child and the rest of the class. Well, my students are adolescents, almost young adults. But my heart broke as the other groups didn't reach out to this student, and the student seemed indignant about joining the other groups. And I thought to myself, I think I understand what Glasser was saying about the need for children to feel loved in school. And safety and security would be explained as simply as, if you see somebody else in trouble in the schoolyard, that you would want to stop and help them, make them feel safe and secure in their environment, respect their property so that they don't feel threatened, those types of things. And that freedom and fun are needs that only the teacher is going to be able to meet in the way that Glasser understands them. That children need freedom to choose certain modalities of assessment, certain ways as to how they learn. They need to learn in a way that they're comfortable learning. And that we can do this by, allowing them some choice over assessments, allowing them some choice on the selective units that they might want to learn. And so I think we can accommodate that, and it makes some sense. Fun, he defines fun as that pleasure that students get as they successfully complete work that is challenging and interesting to them. And so, again, I like his definition of fun more than I liked how I thought his fun would look when I first saw the list. I envisioned balloons and streamers and perma-smiles on everybody's face, but he defines fun as being challenged and going home at the end of the day feeling that you've been challenged and that you've learned something. I actually carried out an experiment. I've been testing these things that I've been reading, both from our course and from this book, and I put my class through a little experiment in the last week. In my second time teaching IB economics here at the school, as a matter of fact, I'm advancing a year 2 unit at the end of year 1 because the curriculum's a bit unbalanced, so I'm actually teaching the same unit to 2 different groups of students in the same year, so it's my second time through. And so I carefully planned the unit, and I made opportunities for IBLICs everywhere that I could. I set up very structured classes where I would lead a scaffolded demonstration of how to solve problems. I broke our class into smaller units that I called, in my own mind, zone teams. So I was matching more knowledgeable others with less knowledgeable others to make sure that they could learn through the language and the understanding of stronger students. I have already told you how I had to deal with the odd kid out, and I had to deal with an antisocial one as well. I have a young lady in my class. She's quite typical of post-Soviet students that we have here. She's tall and quite beautiful. She's had a modeling contract. She's quite sure of herself. Has the best of everything, clothes and cars and vacations, and fancies herself a bit of a psychologist, and so she doesn't like to work in other groups. And so I sort of challenged her. I said, you fancy yourself a bit of a psychologist, you need to read Vygotsky. I said, you are limiting your learning in isolation like this. And she kind of looked at me with smugness, and I kind of laughed back at her. And I like to poke at her to try and get her out of her comfort zone. And so what I observed this week is that I had to admit success. My students accomplished a great deal in their small zoned groups, and they taught each other. They interacted in a really healthy way. The more knowledgeable ones pulled up the less knowledgeable. They were all very proud of their accomplishments as they were turning in group work, which I assume everybody understood. I'll find out when I give them an end of unit individual assessment. But I saw happy faces. I saw great results, and we moved through the unit at a much higher pace than I thought we would. Now, my last year's class told me, when I asked them, how do I make myself a better teacher? They said, get us into, groups, don't lecture as much, and let us do some learning on our own. And I found them right. So in comparing Glasser and Vygotsky, I think they go hand in glove. I have to give one to Glasser. He understood Vygotsky and his choice theory and his application of our material helps Vygotsky style cognitive development.